Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Now it works.
Thank you, IPI. Thank you, Renan. Thank you to my fellow panelists. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation with you, and I'm really glad that IPI is centering this conversation about audience engagement and impact. As Ryan said, I am Ariadne Papagapitos. I am one of the directors at Lighthouse Reports and also responsible for our impact work. We are an investigative team that cooperates with media around the world, large and small, to deliver deeply reported investigations in the public interest, and on topics like conflict, climate, corruption, migration. And I think what is interesting in the context of the discussion we're about to have today is that because we are not a publisher, we are not a platform, and our stories come out on the sites of our media partners and in their pages, that we don't have to think about audience engagement in a traditional way of reaching huge audiences, of page views, of this kind of thing. And so that really frees us up to think strategically about impact and who we need to engage with specifically that can use the journalism to make the most change in the world. So that's kind of my thing, and that's what I'm really excited to talk about today with this group of experts who are also similarly dealing with the same question in different formats across different cultural contexts, languages, geographies. I think we have at Lighthouse a lot to learn from you all about how you do that. And so this incredible group here is going to share with us some of the unique ways that they're doing this work, that they're centering their audience and learning from them and engaging them in unique ways. And as I said, they represent diverse geographies and speak to very different audiences, but they're all employing very creative strategies to do that. And I think that this really stands out in a landscape where local news is increasingly providing poorer quality information to its readers and instead often stealing their data and repackaging it and selling it back to advertisers. So I think today, instead of just kind of hyping tech or promoting how we can all do more with less using tech tools, we're going to talk about how technology is being used as an extension of human creativity and ingenuity, in fact, and how it's being used to facilitate a deeper connection to local audience and local context. And ultimately how with limited resources we can actually contribute to creating much healthier local news ecosystems. So with that kind of framing, I am going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves and also share one unique way that you are using technology or something else to engage your audiences. And so, Tomasz?
Should I start? Hello, my name is Tomasz Bela. Yes, now you can turn me down. Thank you. I'm Tomasz Bela. I'm a co-founder of Denník N, which was founded in Slovakia 10 years ago when a group of journalists decided we want our own newspaper. We don't want to work for bad guys, and we grew from zero to like the biggest newsroom in the country. We also have a second newspaper in Czech Republic and now also like Hungarian language service, so kind of like Central European thing. Most of our revenue come from subscriptions, about 60 to 70%. So that kind of tells you that from the beginning, it was the question of either we listen very carefully to what people want us to do, or we will not exist in half a year. And I think one of the interesting things there was very quickly we learned that for example, in terms of the technologies and the data, there is not lack of data, there is too much data telling you, and all kind of different metrics trying to tell you what you should be doing and what readers are doing. And our one like strange thing about our approach was that we chose like one metric at the beginning and said like this is going to be one metric that actually leads all our newsroom, not just the business side but the newsroom, and that's actually conversions, and that sounds very strange because we are like, so even like all the journalists in our company are expected to actually care about why people are paying for subscriptions and what kind of articles trigger them to subscribe. And we are leading, like this leads to all kind of like decision, it leads to decision of how we grew from 40 people to 110 journalists in a country. And the strange thing is that like 10, 15 years ago, we were kind of in depressing mood, all the industry that, like people don't want to read long articles and people don't read anymore and people want short videos and so on. And the strange thing is that when we decided we don't care about page views, we don't even care about time spent, we don't care about all the metrics, we have thrown out all the tools that were there that we were buying, like Charbit and so on. And we only care about what people are telling us when they are buying subscriptions. And it turns out that what people are pushing us to do is to write longer articles, to write more investigative reporting, to write more long interviews, and so on. So for example, our average article length more than doubled in 10 years, which is like very strange. Like we are writing completely different articles now than we were 10 years ago. And it's not because we would say to journalists, please write longer. Like we still don't like it if they write long articles, but it's because they are getting feedback and the readers are constantly telling us, no, don't do what everyone else is doing. But once I start reading the article, I actually want to read something that I never read before. So it make it longer and longer, and more and more people are actually willing to pay for this. So that's like our strange place, and I'm looking forward to hear others.
Go ahead, Anna.
1, 2, 3. Hi, my name is Ano Harjo. I'm from Mongolia. So probably of every panelist on here, I'm probably the least experienced former journo already. I'm currently identifying as a financial education content creator and working in corporate sustainability at the moment. I used to work as a broadcast journalist in financial media and then in publishing, and now I'm creating content, left journalism creating content, the martyr who left the industry, but I'm hopefully be able to learn a lot from you guys and then also be able to share some useful insight into content creation and platforming. And as you can probably see, I do not have a platform to call, but the name is a platform itself. So it's one person, you're looking at it, the whole team. So I do have some access to a little bit of a limited resource. I probably won't be able to share what a new way of driving impact per se, but recently I've been trying out radical messaging. Like earlier, our panelists were saying they were using messaging and such. So I'm using Instagram broadcast channels, which seems to be a very useful way of engaging with your audience without at a low effort way. So I guess that's it. Anu, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, morning. I'm Mungo Sogat. I'm the CEO of Scroller.Africa, and we're a mobile-only platform launched in South Africa, which serving low-income readers. And we've done quite a few, innovative things on the technical side to build trust in this crucial kind of audience. But before I think the one which resonates most with the question of the day is what we've done with data costs, which are a very significant barrier to entry for our readers, the readers that we're serving. But before I go into what we've done there briefly, just a teeny bit of personal context about how our use of this technology fits with our mission. So I started my career at an iconic South African newspaper called Mail and Guardian, which had a defining role pre and post apartheid. Went into business intelligence consulting, always wanted to go back to media. But then as I plotted my return, I kind of realized that I'd been kind of part of the problem, because all the great African publications, most of them rather, are essentially serve educated elite and kind of ignore vast section of the population, which is which underpin these fragile democracies. So we massive gap comes to Scroller. Our mission is to provide independent media to people who've got little time, little money, or who don't speak much English. And what we do is we kind of combine the serious and the fun. As we put it, we wrap the news that matters in the news that sells. So data costs. So data costs in South Africa are really high. And so what we did is we built a platform, super light platform called Data Light. We got a Google Award for it, and it uses about a tenth of the data of a normal site, and it compresses everything in an automated process from our main site and has fail-safes to prevent a big picture kind of messing everything up. And that's basically that's underpinned our audience growth from the beginning. We launched in the middle of COVID 4 years ago, and talking about data costs, here for a lot of us, it kind of sounds a bit weird, but it's a massively sensitive thing. So even, relatively wealthy people, say an Uber driver in an urban area in South Africa, will be very wary of using their phone to download and to use the net. So, essentially, it's been a kind of crucial part of our plan, and it will change. We're going to lose this technological edge as data costs come down and before Starlink takes over. But we've got a gap while the phone companies still thrash their existing business model. And just a couple of other brief points. Language has been crucial to Data Light. English in South Africa dominates the media, but a lot of other languages massively underserved. Biggest is Zulu, by far the biggest. We've been bilingual from the start, and that's been the lifeblood of Data Light. And no, we can't use AI to do it. It's not good enough yet. And Zulus are kind of a bit like the French. They're very protective, very prickly about their language. And so any kind of clumsy AI translation would lose that trust that we've built.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Jimena Villagrán. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Maldita.es. We are now a foundation that fights disinformation in Spanish, but not everything started in there. We were just a fact-checking organization in Spain, and that's what defines what we are doing right now. We realized since the beginning of Maldita that we were not putting attention to what people was sharing. This information is viral because of people, not because of journalism or whatever. And we had a huge gap. Basically, people was sharing things in private networks. So that private networks, we as journalists, we don't have eyes in there. So we developed this idea of having having a tip line. It was a manual tip line on WhatsApp in which we answer manually each one of the questions that people had in there. During COVID, that line died. Basically, we weren't able even to open the phone. That was a massive amount of messages. So we developed a technology that it's a WhatsApp chatbot for fact-checking that basically WhatsApp considers is one of the best tools for fact-checking in the market. And now the foundation also owns a company that it's called Botalight, in which we develop chatbots for communicate to your audience and create audience engagement. And right now we have more than 18 clients that goes from documented to other fact-checking organizations, even in India. For example, there are people in India, for me, it's like crazy. They have 9 languages in one chatbot, and we hear people. So this is like a crowdsourced database in which we basically learn the questions that people have. We know that this information they are sharing inside the social media. If they want to send them something that it's fake, they send to us. We take that, we make an article, we answer them. We try to answer all the time. So we create a one-to-one relation. They trust in us. And we basically have this amazing database that allows us to research on how this information moves, trends, and to give a service. Basically, we don't think as we do journalism and people should believe us because we are journalists, but it's more than building trust, create a relation, hear what they need. And together with this, we have a community programming. For example, we ask people, we believe that everyone has knowledge in them. So we ask people that they should donate their knowledge to us. So we have this huge community that they are also vectors in sharing. We always ask people to go and share if they like the article, if the article answered their questions, please go and share. That's basically how we do it. So people believe more in what their friends send them than if we go as Maldita and say you should believe to us. So we believe in the power of private messaging and closer relations to build that trust. And that's basically what we do.
Hello, I'm Nicolas Rios, Director of Audiences and Communities in New York in Documented. We are a nonprofit that serves immigrants and the immigration world in general in New York City, in a place that almost half of the population is immigrants, so the market is really huge. We do so via something that we call community research, which is trying to understand the needs of the populations of the different audiences that we serve via surveys and massive scale interviews. And then we do that trying to understand, it's basically info needs assessments, but towards needs. So when we understand the needs, we try to make journalism become a solution to those needs. And we serve Chinese immigrants as an audience, Latino immigrants, Black Caribbean immigrants, and then also the immigration professionals that work with all those immigrants. So by trying to understand their needs and then trying to make journalism and products a solution, we also build bridges in between those communities, because Chinese, Latino, and Caribbeans don't really talk to each other as a community, don't really see each other's problems, and more often than not, there are common trends in between those communities. And above all, the professionals that work with those immigrants, judges, academic researchers, professors, lobby to Congress, etc., don't necessarily have a foot in the communities. And we do by also doing it via messaging platforms. To the professionals, we do it via email. Chinese communities are served via WeChat, which we are the only newsroom in the United States with an organic presence on WeChat. We use WhatsApp and Maldita Tech for Latinos. And with Black Caribbeans, we use Nextdoor as a platform, which we are also the only newsroom in the United States using that platform for journalism. Yeah, that's what we do.
Thank you, everyone. So I'd love to ask all of you what you have learned from your audiences and how that might have affected or changed your work. And maybe we'll start with you, Anu, just to move it around a little.
Okay, this is me moving around. So moving from like broadcast media, then publishing, and into like content creation was quite strange in a sense, because my audience have changed quite drastically. Because when I was a journalist working for a media company, my audience were definitely the media consumers, and of course, and then like my editor, she's an audience for me personally as a media professional, and then the companies themselves. So it's different types of audiences that I was serving back then. Now I am serving only the viewers, essentially, and then I do get very direct communications with, probably most direct that anybody can say, is that because I'm creating, publishing, drafting, even editing all the contents myself in video form. I'm on YouTube, so also as well as Instagram. So I do get the direct feedback from them, and then I do get like what they like, what they don't like, what they want to have, what they don't want to have in a very fast-paced format, so that I can turn the whole thing around very easily if I wanted to. I don't do that all the time, but if I wanted to, there's the room for it. And then also from the audience, I do understood that people can be radically honest every time. And then there are people who love you, would say they love you, but rarely. And people who hate you, they make sure they let you know that they hate you. So I am understanding from the audience byproduct that I'm learning how to manage the stress, shall I say, and then also just handling everything from the production process and as well as delivery, the logistics of it, and then the engagement part. So facing directly with the audience directly was very eye-opening without the system or the institutional support that is around me. So I had to learn byproduct that to go to therapy in a sense on my own. So that direct approach has changed the way that I work, create, and talk to my audience. So I think that's mostly of a byproduct. And then I'm not fully sure if that answers your question per se, but I am getting understanding that people out there are very different than how we were when I was working for a news organization beforehand. So I'm learning how to engage with them quite differently in that sense, and then managing it, and then getting over it, and then going through burnouts and stuff, and then recovering from it.
Yeah, I think we have to recognize that you have to embody a different level of resilience, I think, than those of us that, as you said, have like an institutional backing or more of a foundation or a community of support, like within the professional context. So that's a really important point. So, Tomasz.
Yeah, so there are like many different ways how to like collect feedback. So we tried like many of them, and some of them were scalable, and some of them were not scalable at all. So on the non-scalable level, we did one interesting experiment. Like 1 year, we actually moved our newsroom to 7 different cities. So we said, okay, we know that this is a problem that we are in the capital city, and it's a small country, but still big differences. So we said, okay, for 2 weeks, we are moving as many of our journalists as possible to this small town. All across the country, and we will rent Airbnbs there, and we will rent an offices there, and we will have the events there, and we will like try to bring even the politicians from the capital there. And so like the most non-scalable but most like brutally direct feedback is that when I was standing in front of the theater in this city and trying to give people our newspaper, and they were shouting on me that we are the horrible liberals and we should go back to our capital city. So that's one way, but it kind of also like teaches you something about how you are viewed outside of the normally imagined audience. And on the very other end of like scalable, and that's probably like both are important, but sometimes just the taking seriously the feedback you are getting from data is like very actually hard and very useful, and it kind of very often like helps us overcome our natural arrogance as journalists, because we are all arrogant as journalists, so we have kind of an idea what readers should like to read and what readers should really consume, and there are, just by taking the data seriously, for example, we have learned that there are many, even on the not even topics, but even on the level of genres, there are some genres who readers like us to do, but we just hate to do it. Like typical example is that no one likes to do kind of, we have a genre like you ask, here is a question, and you call 5 experts, and you don't write your own article, but you just like take the expert's answer and put like five of them beneath each other, And this is, no journalist would tell you that this is his dream job, It's kind of like very like beneath, it would be beneath me to write this, But people are actually like constantly telling us that yes, they actually prefer this. Like if there is a serious question, they prefer us to shut up and just give the place to the experts, and not to kind of create some kind of complicated article around it and like this quote and this quote. Just choose the right experts and just give them the place, and I'm happy to pay for it, And this we almost never did this before, but now, just by so many people are actually willing to buy this kind of thing, that we just had to kind of capitulate and said, yes, this is what people want, and some of them even don't trust us at all, which is a big problem, of course, but they trust the experts, so let's give them what they want, let's give them the experts. Another example is even in the genres like journalists don't like to write interviews in this kind of like Central European or European style interview, like question answer, like in the American journalism that would be like beneath you, right? Like why the hell, it's not even you, like you are not writing it. But the readers are constantly telling us, no, this is what we prefer, this is how we prefer to actually consume the information. So we are doing more and more and more on them. And that's the true for the topics as well. So we started as a paper completely focused on politics. And because we thought this is the most important thing in the world, we didn't have sports, we didn't have anything else, right? And then we realized, like if you have problems in other spheres of your life, you don't care about politics at all, So people are kind of starting pushing us to the other topics, and I know how it looks in many other newsrooms. In even my previous newsrooms, we were always like, oh, there is somehow one article is very successful. And that's really strange, like readers are strange, like let's just ignore it, because this is not the real journalism. We know what should the real journalism be. So sometimes it really takes like a certain honesty in accepting that the numbers are what they are and the readers are actually telling you what they are trying to tell you, and just accept it. And of course you don't lower your standards, but you kind of lower your level of arrogance of I know what people actually want, and try to actually listen to that.
Amazing. That's a hard balance, right? You're both delegating the authority and the expertise across a broader range of people, but in some cases you're hearing that, no, we just want to hear from the real experts, or we don't entrust ourselves to drive the topics or the journalism.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Nicolas? You want to tell us how it's changed your audience has changed your work?
Yeah, well, the volume is up. I agree totally with Tomasz. For us, one of the things that we learned is to be humble. Before we developed a solution 6 years ago on WhatsApp for Latinos, when there was no channels on WhatsApp, the reason why we launched it is because we first interviewed community leaders from the immigrant communities from Latin American countries in New York, and then we interviewed immigrants, and then we understood that the main consumption channel in general was WhatsApp 6 years ago. So we developed a solution. It was also a number that we manually responded. I manually responded. And then, so that was only like one way of listening, which is actually what we do very well in journalism, which is interviewing, right? But then the thing is that we have all been there. We go and look for interviews that will actually suit the narrative that we are making, that we are the article that we are creating, right? And we may just look for data interview that will give us that answer that we need to then submit the article. We do it before even creating the solution, even deciding to go on a platform. For example, then with the success of the Latino community, we then got some funding to expand that to Black Caribbeans and to Chinese immigrants. We didn't want to commit to any platform. Data said that we should have done WhatsApp or Facebook for Black Caribbeans in New York, but then when we started interviewing at a mass scale, we did a round of surveys and interviews to more than 1,000 immigrants from those communities. Basically, when we asked them, what is your community? As a Latino, I would have, if you ask me in New York, I'm Latino, right? But when we asked them, they're not. The answer was not that they're from the Caribbean, it was that they live in Brooklyn. So for them, the community is more neighborhood, is where they live, more than where they come from. And when we ask them, then where do you consume the news in your community, which remember, it's their neighborhood, they ended up giving us an answer, which is Nextdoor, that has a fame for being a racist platform for a population that is Black Caribbean mainly. So we decided to launch a product in a platform that has a fame for being racist against Black people, because it was that population that said that they're consuming community news there. So had we not listened first, we would have gone with those pre-assumptions that it's the same population that we wanted to serve, proved us wrong.
Knowing firsthand how siloed the information and the news is towards those very specific and narrow kind of cultural groups, and the fact that you're kind of breaking down some of the barriers and reinforcing the commonalities across immigrant groups is really, really interesting.
Correct. And from those conversations that we have, and listening via interviews or surveys is just one way of doing it. I recognize the value of what Tomasz just said. Basically, you're listening to the data. You're listening to the analytics, right? And that's another way of listening. And when you combine the two, audience and community for that reason, because we combine the two. We analyze the data, all the analytics across all platforms, with the listening to people. And it's very magic that when there is a match in between, people are consuming this kind of articles and people are saying the same to us person to person or via WhatsApp, we publish an article and guess what? It does super well across the board. It gets shared, we get community people to talk to us about it, and we see the analytics, because what we are actually doing is addressing a need that exists. We're making journalism become useful. But we can only do that we cannot do that if we don't understand the needs first.
Longo, how has your audience changed your work?
So the kind of the relatively unsurprising things we've learned is that, given the context of data light and how I've set it out to you, is that it kind of works, and that people stay on the site, much longer on data light than they do on the full site, which has video and lots of fancy stuff, just because they're not worried about spending data. But the kind of surprising thing we've learned given that our mission is to, get the news that matters to a broad audience with lighter fare, is that the stories which have really worked, the things which have really had a big, numerical, by far the biggest views have been the serious things. None of the fluffier things we've done have been in the kind of the top 10, and it's in a way our similar version of what Tomas is saying, that people actually it's really heartening that there's a hunger for serious serious political news among people who've got few resources. And I'm going to just give you one anecdote which just to kind of illustrate this. But the unexpected impact of stories is that South Africa is having an election next week, and as I'm sure some of you know, there are kind of some violent themes to the country, and we 2 weeks ago, my colleague, one of my co-founders, Zakila Majova, called me and said we've got a bit of a problem, and basically one of our journalists. The night before, 4 guys had come to his house with pump-action shotguns in an unnamed province and shot the windows out looking for him. And it was basically he and Zakile kind of knew what it was, and it was a serious story, which I don't think wasn't a kind of massive thing, but it had really resonated with the political party concerned. And my colleague, who's an unflappable newsman, called up the local head of the party and said, "Listen, if you guys have a problem with our stories, just call us or kind of write a letter to the editor. But don't send these kind of thugs." The colleague's absolutely fine, and he's kind of safe and sound, and we've moved on. But it was a kind of unexpected facet of audience engagement. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Extreme audience.
Well, I think I will try to wrap up 4 ideas. One, it's we need to be useful. As Nico was saying, the main objective of all of this is to be useful. Then it's okay that your newsroom, it's data-guided, database, but as you were saying, we need also to have a criteria on what is journalism and what is not journalism. We cannot solve all the issues, even people, it's asking for them. The third one is that there is no stupid questions. People should have a place to ask without being feared about, no, this is so stupid, I should learn about this. But if people is asking to you, it's because they got into Google or they talked to a friend and they don't have an answer. So there you have a need. And last one, it's that not every content is for everyone, but you should write it as you are explaining this for everyone, like you're explaining this to a friend in a bar. So with that 4 things said, for us, it's like Clara, our CEO, always tells us, the reporters in the newsroom, like, okay, think about a woman that has worked during 12 hours a day, then she gets into her house and she doesn't have time or anything to decide to read us or to go and see Netflix. Maybe she will decide to go to Netflix, but people likes to feel informed. People likes to have conversations with others. And without that information, they cannot make decisions. They cannot be part of a community. So our work is to make that simple for them. So basically, if we think about these scenarios, our thing right now, it's okay, we have a huge community that is sending us tips every day. That can be questions, that can be contents as images, videos that they don't know if they are fake or not. We should give them an answer all the time. If they think a mosquito can give them HIV, they might be able to think about it. And we need to work on that, because if not, this information keeps ruling. So the idea is you can have tech, but you need to train your newsroom to keep out all these ideas of journalism, it's the truth. And for example, we don't like to use truth as a concept. We just like to use service. We just like to use useful as words that we prepare for them. And the summary is they need to make informed decisions. And that's why we are in there. So that's what we have been learning all the time. And our community surprises all the time. It's like questions that you have never thought about. There is one that I like a lot. It's water wet? We got that question, and it was like, okay, now we have a philosophical question in here, but it was scientific. We solve it with an article, but you can ask about anything, and that's why we are here, to serve. Water is wet, yes.
Great. So I want to direct a question to Nicolas and Jimena in particular, because you're also using social messaging apps to connect. Including your funders, are they able to get out of the kind of thinking around metrics, kind of more traditional metrics of impact or success that involve page views and audience numbers?
Well, this is a thing. We can measure things. For example, we can measure how many users we have in our chatbots. We can measure how they interact, for example, with the menu of that WhatsApp. If we use a links aggregator as Bitly and that things on our newsletters, for example, we can measure if they click on the content we are sending them on the newsletters, but we cannot know in detail who they are. That's our main issue. It's like we only know, for example, the country they are writing us according to the area code of the phone number, but they might not be living in where their code is in there. We don't know if they are women, if they are men, what ages they have. So we cannot target our content, and we cannot solve solutions for specific groups, and we won't be able to do it because we all agree that privacy is a good thing, and we should have that in our messaging apps. But for example, with the European GDPR, I think the US has more space on that. We cannot even ask them for this information. We can send surveys through WhatsApp, but we cannot ask them any information that allow us to individualize people. So I have your phone, but I cannot have your phone with your number until you agree in a huge contract that people won't read in WhatsApp. So that's the difficult part, like targeting content or knowing what is useful for what audiences. I think Nico and Documented have found really good solutions on making like a specific newsletters according to the physical events, but Nico can talk more about it.
Hello? Yeah, there. We have, I mean, imagine how WeChat, the Chinese app, is for us. Like, it's really not giving us anything. We're barely there. And we cannot even report on some things, you know, because of the censorship, etc. So we have the same issues. We're actually using Maldita Tech on WhatsApp, and we are on WeChat, and we are on Nextdoor, which works kind of a social platform, like more than a social media feed than a messaging app. And then we have products in all the normal and traditional places. As we were having the conversation before this panel, we are having a very big issue today because a lot of our best journalism and responses happen on WhatsApp and happen on WeChat and happen on different platforms that are not giving us page views. And we have become like journalists and professional adults. We have grown up in an era of page views. And it makes sense because the whole business model of our era has been ads on websites. The main issue is that the funders, we're a nonprofit, we have a lot of grants in the United States. A lot of our funders go, and the first question is, yeah, but how many page views do you have? I don't have page views on WeChat, on WeChat, on WhatsApp, but I have a lot of responses. I have a lot of people that come to my physical events. I have a lot of needs that I have identified, and I have a lot of people that I have surveyed and interviewed for my info needs assessments. So the issue that we're facing today is that we're actually using the currency of page views for a currency of engagement. And there is another currency that we're not even talking about, is that it's impact. How do you compare 1 million page views that are declining to a change in the legislation, you know? So what we're discussing is that, for example, in my audience part of my role, I manage a quarterly report of all analytics across all the platforms. But I think that's falling short, and we should be preparing a second quarterly report about engagement. And there's going to be a smaller currency, for example, 50 people that came to this event, 20 people that came to this other event, 50 people that responded to me on WeChat on that, or maybe 1,000 that sent me a message on WhatsApp. It's smaller currency, but not maybe, for sure, it's a very more engaged currency than the million page views that we don't know. And I'm pretty sure that the bounce rate is going to be super high. But the third quarterly report that we think that we should be making, hopefully standardized as a way, it would be an impact way of a way of measuring impact. That there are frameworks to measure impact, but people are just measuring. If they're measuring, no one is really analyzing it, and there is no standardization of how to do that.
This, there is a thing that, for example, in our case, we believe that people don't have to read a full article to get the idea. That's the only way to stop disinformation. It's like, if you read the title, you might have an idea and say, oh, okay, this is false, and be prevented for the next time. Or if you see this content on TikTok, the video itself should be clear. We are not taking people from TikTok to our websites, or we are not taking people from Instagram to our websites. It's really difficult. Who really goes into the bio and clicks on the link tree and then goes into your webpage? No one does that. So we cannot measure, for example, the forwarding of our messages, but we can tell the funders, okay, we have a huge community and we know this is moving around, but this moving around, as the messages are a thing by itself, the videos that we send through WhatsApp are a thing by themselves, won't be reachable and won't be measured in Google Analytics, because we are not taking people to our website, and we are okay with that. We don't live for ads. We live for those funders that give us money, but they also need to change how they ask things from us.
So this traditional metric of time on page is not,
Yeah.
not as relevant. Yeah, I think that that's really important. And I think you also are talking about things like old new things, like offline events, for instance, or I think many of us still use newsletters as a way to get in touch with our audience and interact with them, and those are kind of older tools that are still relevant and still being used in creative ways, but the point is to get closer to your audience. Okay, so one last really quick question before we open it up to Anu. Influencer versus content creator. Educate us, and what does that mean for your audience?
I'm so glad you asked the question. So let's get into it. So influencer, at least I identify as a content creator. I do not identify myself as an influencer, because influencer is a term that is given to people who have individuals who have platforms, who have many followers. Shall I say, more than normal amount of followers. And it identifies an individual about the effect that they have on other people. But the content creators who went into this business, shall I say, did not go into it to influence. They wanted to share, they wanted to engage with the community, they wanted to be useful, as you would say, to share what they've learned with the community, whether it be language barrier that they want to go through, because in my case, I wanted to share financial education and even skincare content with Mongolian audience who does not have English or Russian, any other access to those types of information. So we went into it to share with the community and then be useful, as Jimena said. So that's the term. Content creator is us claiming our own roles. And we're not influencers. We're not there to market things. We're not there to push a product. So that's the old influencer, content creative type of way. But nowadays, I mean, especially with the rise of TikTok and then also user-generated content, people are going into it to be influencers. So there is a distinction between those who do have individuals who have a platform who are creating content rather than trying to influence others. So with this shift, the influencer market seems to be going to an end at this stage. I mean, influencing is dead now, as we are saying, as it used to be. So we do need to think about how the environment is changing, dependent, and also how the platforms and social media platforms are changing, and how we are catering towards that, and then maybe catering towards the algorithm, shall we say. So these are changing landscapes that is happening, and also how we are living and surviving in this community. Where do we think of ourselves as a content creator and then cater our business around it, or do we think about us as an influencer and cater around it? So I just wanted to make sure there's a difference between these two. Yeah.
Thank you for that. 2 social media platforms we might not know about that we should be watching?
Oh, wow. That's a shock. Well, at the moment, I'm very hesitant on TikTok at the moment, given how it's being banned in the biggest social media user of the world. And then Threads is doing great, I think, with X going down, shall I say, but still, we are all on X, Twitter, still, but Threads seems to be doing very well, especially with integration with Instagram, and then it's going open source down the line. So I would be looking into that one. And then Medium is on the rise too, surprisingly. So still very old platforms, but yeah.
Thank you. So my colleague Daniel always says the last person with an account on Twitter is going to be a journalist. Even after Elon Musk has deleted his account, the last guy is going to be a journalist. Okay, questions from the room?
Hi, I'm Seth Forward. I'm from Canada, and I'm a freelance journalist. And I was curious, how do you try to engage younger audiences? Because for myself, I always feel like the toughest, like I always want to write so that my brother, like my younger brother and sister, could read it and actually read the whole way through. But to be honest, I don't think I've ever written a story that they would actually go to the bottom. So how do you kind of navigate that, and how do you see that evolving without becoming an influencer?
I think the only, of course, no one has a very good answer, and we are all struggling with this. But the only thing, if you have the normal management of the paper or the site or some whatever, meet in the room and talk about, how do we engage younger audience, and then it's already wrong. It's not going to end well. The only way how you can actually do that is just to hire young people, and of course that's very hard because you can't recognize them sometimes, if they are good or not. Just to do your best in hiring and then suffer through whatever they will be doing, because you will be you will be suffering, you will think this is really horrible, but sometimes we just have to say, on purpose, we say we are hiring this person, we think he or she is extremely capable, but for sure he will be doing something we will not like, but we just have to let him or her and give her some time and see what happens, and that's not a great strategy, but it's the best strategy we have so far,
If I can add to that, young people is not a homogeneous group, because when you say young people, there are quite a big diversity in it. So I would go, talking to young people and even getting attention of my own sister is like having a crush on a boy who does not really like me, right? It's so hard to actually get engaged with them. So just look at it as in a diverse way, and then try to get to where they are in the present. One of the great examples that do cater towards this audience is, I'm pretty sure you are all aware, is the Daily Oz. They are on Instagram, that they just get to them. Their main platform is Instagram, and they just go through these slides, go through news in a 10-slide format, in a sense. It's a great way of producing content and delivering it. Obviously, it is on Instagram, which is they don't own the platform itself as of that way. So just try to cater towards the different needs of young people, different interests, shall I say. Because young people itself is not an interest group. Like, what type of interest do they have? It's a very big parallel, shall I say. Like, anybody who is interested in a specific topic can range in age from like 8 to 20, or not 20, 50 or so. So it's a vertical. I would say see it as a vertical, and then try to cater towards that specific interest. Rather than going wide, go deep, or go vertical would be a good strategy, I would say. Just maybe think on it that way.
Like to jump on this. We did two things. One, we realized that young people was working in our newsroom, and we weren't using what they knew. So from one side, we hired one like new community manager that she TikTok is her thing, and currently TikTok is like our only growing social media right now, because she's making everyone in the newsroom doing TikTok. Or all the time, you just go and see on the window and they are dancing outside, and that's okay. And it's really funny. Their videos are amazing, even like for every kind of age. And we have grown a lot during the last few months. But the other thing that we did was creating a new brand. Maldita has like this brand that it should be trustful and serious, so there is no way that we could handle like the new codes and things like that. So we now have a team and a new brand that is called Factos, and it's just for Instagram and TikTok. We question a lot about we are selling all to an algorithm and the platforms and how they work. We are not seeing this as we are going to be there all the time. Maybe we can move and then we should take this brand to other place. But this is basically having a content creator in our newsroom, and she can use codes. She is like more free than just using the brand of Maldita. Even it's a brand inside Maldita, and Maldita Foundation, basically. They work separately. They have other topics. They have other codes. They can be talk more freely. And during the last few months, we have been growing this account organic. We haven't even made a launch. The official launch will be like in October in an event and everything. And the other thing that we made was alliances with content creators that were worried about this information. So a lot of them now share our content, so we get to engage with their audiences that they are not giving that type of content. So it's like a win-win for their audiences and for the content creators and for us, obviously.
Yeah, do you want to add something? And then let's gather a few questions. So.
Yeah, just very briefly to add to what's been said. I mean, I think the idea of having young people in newsrooms absolutely pivotal, but it's, communicating with a young audience, it's the same challenge as communicating with as broad an audience as possible. And the sub-editor is the kind of, they're the unsung heroines and heroes in newsrooms, and a lot of people outside our profession don't kind of get that. And there's this great phrase, which a grizzled old sub-editor in England I spoke to, he said this, the role of a sub-editor is to protect the reader from the pretensions of the writer, of the journalist. And I think the key is to get young sub-editors, and often the sub-editors are much older people. And we have, the most experienced people are generally, obviously older, but I think the key is to get younger people to become sub-editors.
But we have to find something.
Alison Campbell from Internews. Nicholas, I loved what you were saying about in face-to-face and in-person events. I think for many newsrooms that would just seem like way too much work, way too labor-intensive, even though you're likely smaller than they are. So I wonder if you could talk to us about what makes a good face-to-face event. What are you looking for when you go there? Aside from the connecting with the few deeply, how does it have a life kind of beyond that event?
So I'll just finish quickly. So I think we have to abandon pages because they are really like the horrible metrics. But we have to invent, so we have abandoned it already 10 years ago, and if my reporter asks me what are the page views or article, I will say, I will not tell you. I'm not telling you because it's like the most damaging metrics. But we have to find something else to replace it with. And as we saw, like it's even harder now, it was 5 years ago, because there is views in the newsletter and there is views on TikTok and there is something else. So we have to, until we find something better that we can persuade people who are asking us for page views, like, no, this is like new, better metrics, then it's problem. So it's our task to come up with something that say this is better, and some newsrooms can be faster in the replacing of that, and some probably cannot yet. Yeah.
To that, I think that there is a big opportunity for us as media to maybe form a blog, Ryan. And that could be like a big thing, you know, like to work together with a standardization of engagement, you know, or a standardization of impact. You know, those are two things that are being left from page views. And I don't think that anyone has the answer. I think that we are moving away from the website world of the internet, and maybe there should be new proposals around that. Can I answer the second question? Events. I think that there are heavy lifts, but it speaks all on this second currency of engagement, right? But it's very highly engaged people that could be maybe paying for some products, or that are there because they're paying, right? As how we give events longer life, you're right, they die when people leave the room. We're doing two things. One is having hosted conversation and moderated conversations to which we also listen. And then we have people come up with some sort of like surveys or like things that they can fill, that it's data that we also analyze. It's just not multiple choice. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's ways of still listening to the people that are there. One way that we have come to do that are for us is a lighter lift is basically what we did at the beginning when we did all the community service is tag along with the incumbent communities, the organizations that already work, and we bring them in, and they basically bring more people to your party.
It's been such an interesting discussion, and sorry that we have to wrap up. You've taught us how to center humility, how to move the product away from just being an elite thing for elite audiences, and that it's incumbent on us as journalists to democratize access to our work. So thank you for that, and a big round of applause to you.